All right. Welcome in, everyone. Today we're going deep on type 1 diabetes.
Oh, yeah.
And wow, you've given us a lot to work with.
Yeah.
Medical guides, tech questions, even some personal stories in there.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like you really want to get the full picture on this one.
Absolutely. And it's something that reaches far beyond just this deep dive. What we talk about here, it matters to millions of people around the world. Folks living with type 1, families dealing with it, researchers trying to crack the code. It's big.
For sure. So no pressure, right?
Right.
Okay, well, got to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
And this comprehensive guide you sent over, that seems like a solid place to begin.
Definitely.
So it says here, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, which honestly sounds kind of scary.
Well, yeah, it kind of is. Think of it this way. You have your immune system, right? It's supposed to be the good guy fighting off infections and all that.
Right.
But with type 1, it's like, it gets confused. Instead of attacking the bad stuff, it starts attacking your own body. Specifically, these cells in your pancreas called beta cells, the ones that make insulin.
And insulin, that's, well, from what I'm reading here, it seems pretty important for, like, everything.
It really is. It's like, imagine your cells are little engines, right? And they need fuel to run.
Okay.
That fuel is glucose, the sugar you get from food. But the cells can't just use it directly. They need insulin to let the glucose in. Like, insulin's the key that unlocks the door.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So without insulin, the glucose just builds up in your blood, and that can lead to, well, a whole cascade of problems if it's not taken care of.
So unlike type 2 diabetes, where we always hear it's about lifestyle choices and all that,
Yeah.
type 1 is just, like, bad luck.
Pretty much, yeah. There's a strong genetic component, meaning it can run in families.
Okay.
But even then, it's not a guarantee. The comprehensive guide talks about how researchers are looking into these environmental triggers, things like certain viral infections. It seems like it's often a combo of those things, the genes, and something from the environment that sort of flips the switch and kicks off this whole autoimmune response.
A perfect storm, basically.
Yeah. Sadly, that's a good way to put it.
And, one of the questions you sent in was about the difference between type 1 and type 2, and it's something I think people get confused about all the time.
Oh, definitely. All the time. But it's a super important distinction.
Yeah.
Because with both types, you end up with high blood sugar, right?
Yeah.
But the reasons are totally different.
Okay.
With type 1, your pancreas is basically out of the game. It can't produce enough insulin or sometimes any insulin at all.
But you need to get it from somewhere else.
Exactly. Which means lifelong insulin therapy, often starting pretty young.
Okay, so if we think of type 1 as, like, you lost the key entirely,
Right.
would it be fair to say type 2 is more like having a key that, I don't know, is rusty and doesn't quite fit the lock right?
Ooh, that's a great analogy. Yeah, with type 2, the body becomes resistant to insulin, so it's there, but it's not working the way it should. And over time, the pancreas might start making less and less insulin too, like it's getting tired.
Ah, I see.
So that's where the lifestyle stuff comes in.
Yeah.
While there's a genetic component to type 2 as well, things like what you eat, how much you exercise, your weight, all that has a huge GC impact on both developing it and managing it once you have it.
Gotcha. So insulin's really at the heart of it, whether it's type 1 or type 2.
Exactly.
And I know you had some questions specifically about how insulin therapy actually works for people with type 1, like the specifics of it.
Oh, yeah, tons of questions. And it's such a fascinating area, especially with all the new stuff coming out.
Right. I was just thinking all these gadgets and tech advancements, it's almost mind-blowing.
It is. It really is.
But before we dive into all that, maybe we should back up a bit.
Okay.
Because I think it's important to understand, like, what does everyday life with type 1 diabetes actually look like? Beyond just taking the insulin,
You're so right. It's easy to focus on the meds and the numbers, but there's so much more to it. It's a whole way of life. And a lot of it comes down to this constant, careful balancing act, like walking a tightrope almost.
Oh, interesting. A tightrope.
Yeah, you've got to be so aware of everything. It's pretty intense.
Wow. Okay, so tell me more about that, this tightrope analogy. What are the things you're constantly trying to balance?
Well, on one side, there's the whole monitoring of blood sugar levels, You got to be on top of that all the time.
Right.
And on the other side, you've got the planning of meals, figuring out insulin doses. It's a lot.
It really is. And it's funny, you actually asked specifically about diet.
Did I?
Yeah. And this comprehensive guide is all about how, for someone with type 1, what they eat isn't just about being healthy. It's directly connected to how much insulin they need.
Absolutely, yeah. Every single gram of carbohydrate you eat has to be accounted for.
Wow.
You got to balance it with the right amount of insulin. And it's not just like a one-time thing, it's a constant calculation.
Yeah, and if you get the calculation wrong,
Uh-oh.
what happens then?
Well, even small mistakes can cause those swings in blood sugar
On
levels.
dangerous ones we hear about.
Yeah, and you even asked about hypoglycemia specifically, which is when blood sugar goes too low, right?
Right, and from what I'm reading, that basically means there's too much insulin in your system for the amount of glucose you have.
Exactly. It's like having too many keys and not enough doors to unlock.
Hmm.
The cells are taking in more glucose than they need, so the levels in your blood drop way down. That's when you get all those scary symptoms, the dizziness, the confusion, sometimes even seizures if it gets really bad.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's one side of the tightrope,
Yeah.
right? Too much insulin.
Right.
But what about the other side? What happens if your blood sugar gets too high?
That's called hyperglycemia. In that case, it's like you don't have enough keys to open all of the doors.
Not enough insulin.
Exactly. The cells aren't getting the fuel they need, so all that extra glucose just hangs out in the blood. And over time, that can damage your blood vessels, lead to all sorts of complications. Oh man, all kinds of stuff. Heart disease, vision problems, nerve damage. It's a scary list.
So with type 1 diabetes, it's all about staying balanced, avoiding those extremes.
Exactly.
Which, honestly, just listening to you talk about it, it sounds incredibly hard.
It can be, yeah, definitely. But thankfully, it is manageable.
And how do you do that?
Well, that's where things get really interesting because technology is starting to play a bigger and bigger role, helping make this whole balancing act a little bit easier.
Oh, right. I remember now you asked about all the new tech advancements.
I did, yeah. And honestly, some of the things they're doing now, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Tell me about it. What are some of the things that stood out to you from the research?
Well, for example, there are these things called continuous glucose monitors, CGMs for short.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
They're like having a window right into your bloodstream. They constantly measure your glucose levels and send that info to a little receiver.
So you can see what's happening in real time.
Exactly, real time. No more pricking your finger a million times a day. It's a total game changer.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. It really is. And having that constant stream of data, it makes managing things so much more precise. You can see trends, catch those highs and lows before they get out of control, and adjust your insulin accordingly.
And speaking of adjusting insulin, you also asked about insulin pumps.
I did, yeah. Those are still pretty standard, right?
They are, and they've come a long way, too.
Oh, really? What's new with those?
Well, for starters, they deliver insulin continuously through a tiny little catheter that goes under your skin.
Okay.
So it's more how a healthy pancreas would work. You know, not just these big spikes of insulin all at once.
Interesting.
And get this, some of them can actually talk to the CGMs now.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So they're working on these systems. They're called closed-loop systems, where the CGM is sending info to the pump, and the pump's automatically adjusting the insulin based on that data.
Oh, wow. Is that the artificial pancreas thing I was reading about?
That's it. It's not totally autonomous yet, but it's getting closer and closer to actually mimicking a healthy pancreas.
That's incredible. So it's like it's taking some of the mental burden off of the person managing their diabetes.
Exactly. It's not a cure, but it's definitely making life with type 1 a lot more manageable.
That's awesome. Really awesome. But what about the future? Is there anything else on the horizon, like even more revolutionary stuff?
Oh, there is. Trust me. Researchers are busy little bees. One area that's particularly exciting is this thing called islet cell transplantation.
Wait, hold on. Are they actually talking about putting healthy insulin-producing cells into someone with type 1?
They are, and it's showing some really promising results.
But how do they even get those cells? And wouldn't the body reject them?
That's the tricky part. Sourcing the cells is one challenge, but you're right, preventing rejection is the big one.
Because you're basically messing with the immune system at that point, right?
Exactly. It's like trying to reprogram it to accept these new cells as friendly.
Wow, that's intense. And is that where the whole immunotherapy thing comes in?
That's another huge area of research. Some immunotherapies are focused on stopping the immune system from attacking those beta cells in the first place, and others are even looking at ways to regrow those cells.
So they're not just managing the symptoms, they're trying to reverse the whole disease.
That's the goal, and it's giving a lot of people hope.
It's incredible. But even with all this amazing stuff on the horizon, we can't forget that there's so much more to living with type 1 than just the medical side of things, you know?
Oh, absolutely. You're so right. It's about the human experience, the day-to-day reality of what it's like to actually live with this condition.
Exactly. And I think that's something that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, I agree. We get so caught up in the science and the tech, we forget about the person behind it all.
And their families and their friends and everyone who cares about them.
That's a great point. It really does touch everyone in a way.
It does, and it's not always easy to talk about, There's a lot of emotion tied up in it. But it's important to talk about it, to share those experiences, because it can help people feel less alone.
Right, less isolated.
Exactly. And that's why these online communities and forums have become so important. It's a place where people can connect with others who get it, share tips, offer support, and just like vent if they need to.
It's like a virtual support group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And not just for emotional support either. There's tons of practical info being shared too. Recipes, tech reviews, the latest research. It's amazing.
Wow, it's like crowdsourcing knowledge and support.
Exactly. And it's not just happening online either. People with type 1 are becoming their own best advocates, raising awareness, pushing for better access to care and technology, funding research.
It's inspiring.
It really is. It shows just how resilient and determined people can be when they're facing something like this.
Absolutely. So I think that's a good place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much more to talk about. Next time, we'll dive into the emotional side of living with type 1, the challenges, the triumphs, and everything in between.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. And in the meantime, if you're listening and this has resonated with you, just remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who understand what you're going through, and there's a ton of resources available to help you manage this condition and live a full and meaningful life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. Well, until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and take care.
See you then.
Bye.
It's a lot, yeah. Like every decision, every little thing you do throughout the day, it all kind of revolves around your diabetes. And it's not always easy to explain that to people who haven't lived it,
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I'm thinking about this one blog post you sent in. It was so powerful. The person was talking about how even something as simple as going out to dinner with friends becomes this whole ordeal.
Right.
You have to plan ahead, think about what you're going to eat, how much insulin to take. It's a lot of mental energy.
It is. It's exhausting sometimes. And, not everyone gets it. They might make comments or give unsolicited advice. It can be frustrating.
Yeah, can only imagine.
And that's one of the reasons why finding a community, people who really understand, is so important.
That makes sense, like a support group or something.
Exactly. It could be a formal group or just friends and family who get it, but having that support system makes a huge difference.
I was going to say, I'm seeing a lot in these sources about online communities and forums.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like the internet's become a lifeline for a lot of people with type 1.
It really has. Back in the day, before the internet, it could be so isolating, You felt like you were the only one dealing with this stuff.
Right, like no one understood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, with these online spaces, people can connect with others from all over the world, share their stories, ask questions, get advice. It's amazing.
It's like having this whole network of support right at your fingertips.
Exactly. And it's not just about emotional support either. There's a ton of practical information being shared too. People are sharing recipes, comparing notes on different tech gadgets, talking about the latest research.
Wow, it's like crowdsourcing knowledge and support all in one place.
It really is. And you know what else is really cool?
What?
People with type 1 are becoming their own best advocates.
Oh, right. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, they're raising awareness, pushing for better access to care and technology, funding research. It's really inspiring.
It is. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we're going to wrap up this deep dive, the takeaway is this.
What's that?
Type 1 diabetes is a complex condition, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
But with knowledge, resilience, and a strong support system, people can not only manage it, but truly thrive.
Absolutely, 100%. And with all the research happening right now, the future's looking brighter than ever.
That's for sure.
There was this one article that really blew my mind. It was talking about how they're working on ways to actually reverse the disease.
Reverse it. Wow.
I know. It's incredible. But even while we're waiting for those breakthroughs, it's important to focus on what we can do now,
Yeah, empower people with the knowledge and support they need.
Exactly, to take control of their health, live their best lives, and not let diabetes define them.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I've learned so much.
Me too. It's been awesome. And, if you're listening out there and any of this has resonated with you, just remember you're not alone.
Right, there's a whole community out there ready to support you.
Exactly. Keep learning, keep connecting, and never give up hope.
Well said. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today, but stay tuned for our next deep dive where we'll be tackling, well, let's just say it's going to be juicy.
Can't wait.
See you then. It really is. And, going through those sources you sent, there was this one blog post. It was really personal, and it talked about this feeling of, isolation,
Oh, yeah.
and this constant worry, the mental energy it takes to manage type 1 every single day. I mean, it's a lot to carry.
It really is. It's like you're always on. You can never really switch off completely. And not everyone gets that.
Right. It's like this invisible thing that you're dealing with all the time.
Exactly. It's invisible, but it's always there. And it can be exhausting mentally and emotionally.
This blogger, they were saying how even something as simple as going out to dinner with friends, it becomes this whole logistical puzzle.
Oh, tell me about it. Trying to explain that to people who haven't been there. It's tough.
Yeah, I can see that. And
Yeah.
I think that's why finding a community, connecting with people who really get it, that seems so crucial.
It is. It's huge. Whether it's a support group or online communities or even just a couple of close friends who understand, having that support system makes all the difference.
Speaking of online communities, I'm noticing a lot of mentions of those in these sources.
Oh, yeah. The internet has been a game changer for people with type 1.
It's like back in the day, you were kind of on your own, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But now you can connect with people from all over the world who are going through the same thing. You can share tips, ask questions, offer encouragement. It's amazing.
It's like this whole network of support right there in your pocket.
Exactly. And it's not just for emotional support either. There's a ton of practical information being shared too. Recipes, tech reviews, the latest research findings. It's incredible.
It really is. And it's not just about passively consuming information either, right? People with type 1 are really stepping up as advocates.
Absolutely. They're raising awareness, fundraising, pushing for better policies. It's inspiring.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the takeaway for me is this.
Yeah.
Type 1 diabetes, it's complex, it's challenging, but it doesn't have to define you.
Couldn't agree more.
With the right knowledge, the right support, and a whole lot of resilience, people with type 1 can absolutely thrive.
And with all the amazing research happening right now, who knows what the future holds? Maybe a cure is just around the corner.
Fingers crossed. But until then, it's about empowering people to live their best lives right now, today.
Exactly. Take control, find your community, and never give up hope.
Well said. And to everyone listening out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
If you're looking for more information or support, there are some great resources mentioned in the sources we used, and we'll be sure to share those in the show notes.
Definitely. And remember, you're not alone in this journey.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and take care of yourselves.
See you later.
Bye.